Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Obviously, we're not on campus today, so I'll do a quick overview of Chapter 5. As a reminder, your case notes are due tonight, so make sure to get those in. Already sent out an email about that, but if you do have any questions, please let me know. All right, let me bring up the slides. Okay, so Chapter 5 is actually pretty straightforward. So, if we have to, move a lecture online, this is not a bad one to do that. So Chapter 5 focuses on finding and solving customers' problems. So looking for problems that could hopefully be solved through innovation. So there's this idea of problem-based concept generation. And there's a couple steps you can take, and some of this we've already sort of covered, but we'll kind of continue on with some of these ideas in this chapter. So first, create a PI, a product innovation, product category of interest, which you can do from the PIC. Next, you're researching customers' needs and problems. We talked about lead users last class, and they're really a great source for coming up with realistic problems. 3, you create a pool of problems, and you rate the importance of benefits and levels of satisfaction. 4, you undertake problem-solving efforts, focusing on the most pressing problems. And 5, you prep product concept-based problem solution. So first, we're gathering problems. All right, looking at internal records. What are customers saying? What are they calling about to complain about? Asking employees within certain departments. And ask customers, not necessarily what they want, but what are the problems that they're having? So if we think of like smartphones, what are some of the issues that have come up over the years? Well, it can be difficult to clean, they break, they're difficult to find, the battery doesn't stay charged long enough, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a list, as opposed to saying, let's jump right into the next version of the phone. Let's instead say, what are the problems and try to fix those. Second, third, you gather and then analyze these problems. And so what you're doing here is you're gathering these problems, you're creating sort of this pool of problems, but you also want to figure out not only how often they happen, but how bothersome they are. So for example, pet owners, if you're a pet, a company that makes pet products, you want to focus on the things that happen frequently, sure, but then also things that are more bothersome. So they need constant feeding, of course, yeah, but you wouldn't consider that bothersome. Whereas something like getting fleas, not quite as frequent, certainly, but certainly very problemsome. So that's something that a company would say, well, this is going to be a problem, and we should focus on having a solution for this. Where else can you get useful data? Experts in different fields and trade journals like Harvard Business Review. Contacting business customers and consumers through interviews, focus groups. You can also do an approach called fly-on-the-wall observation. A really great example of this is what Nokia has done in the past. So Nokia was trying to strengthen their African market, get to more customers there. And they went to observe how customers in specifically Uganda, how they were using cell phones there. One of the really interesting things they found is that phone sharing was a lot more common in Uganda than in other markets. And they altered their phones in order to make phone sharing more amenable. So, it was a problem that they hadn't thought of, right? But using this fly in the wall type of research, they're able to see this problem and say, okay, we can come up with a pretty simple fix for this and strengthen, a market that maybe at the time Nokia was not very strong in. Another example of how this problem analysis can come up with. What you're seeing here is what's called Dyson's air multiplier fan. So Dyson, they do hand dryers and they do vacuums. They do a lot of air related type products. But this is a really interesting one. It's a fan. It just looks really different from most fans. So how did they come up with this? Well, they base this on customer problems, and customers were looking at existing window fans or desktop fans, and they're realizing that there's a few problems that kept popping up. Airflow is choppy, blades could be dangerous, they could tip over, they're hard to clean and inefficient. So the air multiplier, it uses technology from hand dryers, like I said, something Dyson knows well, And they designed it to solve all these problems. Airstream is smooth, the danger is limited because no blades, lower center of gravity. And so all these problems that kept popping up with traditional fans, the air multiplier was able to fix them. So some questions you can ask in focus groups. What you do in focus groups is you get, let's say 5 to 10 customers together and you ask them problems. What's the real problem with existing fans? What are your current attitudes towards existing fans? So you're really getting them to focus on existing problems, and then you as the innovator need to be able to try to solve them. Now, there's going to be different scenarios that the average customer is not going to be able to view. And so this is where doing some different types of scenario analyses can help to sort of pick out, what problems, not only should we expect to happen, but what could be some new problems that come up. So on one end, you have something called an extending study, which just projects out trends kind of on a continuous line. A leap study is where we're projecting what if there's some sort of radical social shift. And then a wildcard study is kind of the more extreme, where you're projecting high impact, low probability scenarios. And well, let's think about this. What about housing costs? Okay. Now, if you were to do an extending study, we would have seen housing costs sort of just gradually go up, and the average cost for a house in the U.S. today would still be, $250 or so. We know, of course, that's not what happened, right? Because of COVID, because of kind of the reactions out of that and people moving to different markets, we saw, either a leap study or really probably wildcard study 1, where housing prices really jumped up in a lot of places because of major societal shifts. And so, opportunities come out of that, sort of, new housing opportunities and things like that. But this is a scenario that, an extending study alone would not have projected this. So just some explanations of how to look at this, the extending study versus a leap study. And again, wildcard study. Okay, so fourth, how are we going to solve the problem? Brainstorming, essentially. This is where you're trying to encourage creativity as a group. So if you think about our idea video that we had a few classes ago, they cover a lot of this material. You want to defer judgment, quantity over quality, no criticism allowed, freewheeling. You don't slow this brainstorming session down. And at the end, you can combine and improve ideas, right? So very open-ended. And there's different approaches to brainstorming. You can do reverse brainstorming, where participants generate a list of problems. They prioritize these issues and focus on the most important ones. Online brainstorming, where it's a bit more anonymous and everyone can share their own feedback. Or speed storming. It's kind of like speed dating, where participants pair off, they share ideas for 5 minutes, and then they switch. I have a great TED talk here that I think maybe what I can do is I can if we have time in class, we can watch it as a class. Stephen Johnson, he talks about where good ideas come from, and talks about sort of the history of it and how coffee shops and tea houses have historically been really important because it's, they're places that people have, come up with great ideas. So you have the link here. You're certainly free to watch it. And again, if we have time in class, I'll try to show it. Okay. So by the way, don't worry about slide 17. I just realized this is from a prior semester and I hadn't erased it. So I apologize for that. But this is not the case you're doing. As a reminder, you're doing the Honda Element case. So, all right. So that's chapter 5. Like I said, it's a pretty short chapter. Just make sure to review it on your own time. If you have any questions about this, or again, if you have any questions about case number 2, please let me know. Otherwise, enjoy the snow day, stay warm, and I will see everyone next week. Thanks.